This is Versed, powered by Vium Capital, the podcast that brings you conversations with the leaders driving change in seniors housing and healthcare. I'm your host, Steve Kennedy, and together we'll explore the insights, challenges, and solutions shaping our industry. Welcome to the latest edition of Versed, powered by Vium Capital. I'm your host, Steve Kennedy, and this is a little bit of a different one. We are usually in an office or maybe a studio, but we're outside with Vaughn Harber and Coach Jay Moseley. As some of you know, Coach Jay Moseley of the Ohio State men's golf team has been the coach there for over a decade and had quite the run. And Vaughn Harber just finished his sophomore year at Ohio State and was one of the 20 amateurs that qualified for the U.S. Open. So he just is coming off Shinnecock and is going to be playing in the USAM at Marion in August. And, before kind of going into that experience at the U.S. Open and Ohio State, their golf program, I thought I'd set the setting a little bit. We're at Scioto Country Club, and Vaughn Harber has been a caddy at Scioto Country Club, and we are at Scioto hosting right now the U.S. Senior Open. It's the 46th U.S. Senior Open, and it's being hosted as a part of the 100-year anniversary of Bobby Jones winning the U.S. Open at Scioto. So it's been a great event so far. This is Thursday, sort of the first day of play. It's hot, but I think everybody's enjoyed it so far. So with that long-winded preamble, let me thank Coach Mosley and Vaughn for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
All right, so we got to jump into it, Vaughn. And I refer to you as Vaughn because one of our colleagues, Steve Munn, immediately kind of coined that term, and it went viral within the halls of Vium Capital. Tell us what the last few weeks have been. Playing in the U.S. Open, being one of the 20 amateurs, almost having a hole-in-one on Thursday on number 17. Just talk about the experience.
Yeah, started obviously all at the qualifying, finished 5 under the last 5 there to get myself a spot in a playoff, and then obviously ended up making it through that. So that was pretty cool. And pretty soon after that, a lot of stuff kind of started happening pretty quick. Luckily I have him in my corner, and my family, everyone was a lot of help, but it was definitely a lot of stuff that I wasn't quite used to. So it was pretty hectic. But they made it super easy for me to just focus on golf, which is, that's, I guess, what I'm best at.
Right.
So the whole experience there was just unbelievable. The way that myself and all the amateurs were treated was, it doesn't get better than that. And the course obviously was a extreme challenge, but it was a lot of fun to play and test my game up against some of the best players in the world.
And Coach Moseley, talk about your experience with your players like Vaughn. Playing in a major, was that a new experience for you, or was it not? Was that old hat? Talk about that.
Yeah, the opportunity for a college amateur player, golfer, to play in a U.S. Open, a major championship, is something that's really, really special and rare. And so it's a meaningful, significant experience for not only him, but his family, our program, his circle of support and whatnot. So it's a really cool opportunity, a special moment that we want him to be able to capitalize on and make memories that he's going to remember for the rest of his life. And so it was really cool. I've certainly been blessed to have several other players, going back to Will Grimmer playing at Shinnecock in 2018 in the U.S. Open when he was on our team. And then Maxwell Moldovan actually played in 3 while he was on the team at Ohio State. Neil Shipley played in the Masters and U.S. Open a couple years back. So it's certainly not a common occurrence, but we've been very fortunate to have some great players that have really made their way through amateur and college golf and gone on to do some really special things. So I was certainly very, very thankful that I'd had the previous experience at Shinnecock and some other U.S. Opens to know how to help him navigate. If you think about it, Steve, he qualified for the U.S. Open on June the 6th, and he left to drive to Shinnecock on the 10th, I believe. So you've got 4 days to put together logistics, travel, lodging, like the whole, and on top of that, it's being hosted in the Hamptons in June, in the middle of June. So you've got 4 days to really kind of put this whole thing together, and that's a real challenge for someone on short notice. The other amateurs and pros that maybe had exemptions and had further anticipation of playing that event are certainly at an advantage. But it was a little wild, but I think everything turned out really, really cool and special for him and his family.
No doubt. And sticking with you, Coach, I mean, what did you see in Vaughn maybe leading up to the U.S. Open that told you that, yeah, he's ready for this. He's ready to be on this stage?
Yeah, he's a really, really gifted athlete that we noticed, in high school. He's got, a long frame and has the ability to do some really special things with a golf club in his hands, which we, kind of knew he had a really, really high ceiling. It's kind of what we categorized him as, sky's the limit for a talent like him. And so there's nothing that he's done that surprised us, because we felt like he's got a real God-given talent and gift that he's been able to really showcase, while he's at Ohio State, and obviously doing things like he did, since our season wrapped up. I would even go back to May 12th when he played in his local. I've got a picture. He was, I think did you caddy or did you carry or push in the local qualifier, the first stage of qualifying? He's just out there by himself, no caddy. With a couple other guys, they're probably shooting 83 in this qualifier, and he goes out, he's like 400 through 8, 500 through 12. Like, he was just on a heater. And so obviously he kind of cruised through that, was medalist at that qualifier and played great. And then, carried that right into the final qualifier at the Lakes, where he's playing against a lot of guys coming from Muirfield and the Memorial, a lot of other great amateurs, professionals from all over. And he had to be at his best, on June 6th to, punch one of those tickets to the finals of the U.S. Open.
You didn't try to use a push card at Shinnecock, did you?
No, I did not.
Who was on the bag for you?
It was my swing coach, John Yarborough, who I've been with for 10 plus years now. First time I met him was actually at the U.S. Kids State Championship at Avalon Lakes, and I could not hit a golf ball. Like, I could not hit a shot. And my dad happened to know who he was and saw him a couple rows down on the range and asked him, like, hey, is there any chance that you could come look at my kid and his swing and help him out? And he came over and he tried to actually put an alignment stick down.
Yeah.
And I was hitting it even worse. And then he kind of told me, he's like, well, just hit me a draw. And I hit a draw. He said, hit me a fade. I hit a fade. And I've been with him ever since. So that's kind of how we try to keep it simple and stuff like that. So he was perfect. And he had actually caddied in a U.S. Open at Shinnecock before in 2004. So he had some experience out there, which was extremely valuable.
That's a great guy to have on the bag. And before we get into, we wanted to kind of delve into mindset and, stuff we talk at Vium Capital a lot, sort of the chop wood, carry water mentality. But before that, I mean, for people watching this, maybe what's one story from that U.S. Open week that people wouldn't have necessarily seen on TV? I mean, I think you kind of went viral with your almost hole-in-one on 17 on Thursday, but maybe what's one story people don't know?
I got a couple, actually. So first one is we stayed in a house about, 5-6 miles from the course?
Yeah, 5 miles.
And the drive, when you plug it into maps, was like just over an hour in the peak of traffic, just because it's one way in, one way out, because it's in the island. So we actually found out that we could get police escorts to the course. Yeah, so I got my first ever police escort, which was pretty sweet.
That is awesome.
On the proper side of it.
Yeah, exactly. That was pretty cool. Definitely a new experience for me. And then so the house we stayed in, we actually had, I think it was 12 to 15 people staying in the house that had 3 or 4 bedrooms. So we had like 6 air mattresses blown up. And,
No way.
Like a ton of family friends had come to make that trip and support. So that was cool
great.
too.
That is great. Our joint venture partner, Merchants Capital, their CEO, Mike Dury, requires police escorts every time he goes to the office. So that's ironic he brought that up, but I digress. Let's kind of get into the mental side. So when things aren't going well, because we all have that, even higher handicaps like myself, talk about what do you do to go back to that sound mental state of mind?
I'm pretty good at staying level-headed, whether or not I'm playing well. Something he always says is you never really know when you're going to play your best golf. So always keep a positive and just a good mindset, right? Like you said. I think a lot of it also is about your preparation leading into it. Because if you're not prepared and you start playing bad, then there's nothing to fall back on. So you can't really rely on anything there. But I'd say the biggest thing for me is just making sure I'm prepared and always keeping a positive mindset, attitude, no matter what happens.
Good. And coach, when as a head golf coach and having players like Vaughn and Neil Shipley and such great players you've had and continue to have, and I know from Scioto you're going to have a freshman, Mikey Pagnato, St. Charles grad, will join the team. How do you teach consistency in a sport that sometimes just feels so inconsistent?
Yeah, it's a challenge for a lot of 18, 19, 20-year-olds that are really trying to figure out which way is up, kind of drinking water out of a fire hose when they come to Ohio State, being away from home for the first time, leaving their comfort of high school and friend groups, and just trying to figure out what their what their compass looks like of where my moral compass and what my true north is and things like that. We talk a lot about identity and how these guys, their identity is not in golf, because if it is, it's going to be a tough battle. And so, I think, habits are something that are really, really critical for these guys to build, consistencies in their routines, their schedules, their rituals of just being consistent day in and day out. And that's what they do a really good job of buying in with their work ethic, of not just picking and choosing when they can kind of, fake it till they make it, so to speak. They've got to really, be able to live, breathe, eat, sleep, encompass that total athlete that we talk about at Ohio State, of being consistent in all the things that you do, the little things that really matter, especially at this level.
And that is that the mentality that you think separates, the good college golfers from the great ones?
It definitely can be. Talent's a big piece of it, obviously, but the elite players typically have a little something different about it. I think you've seen a lot documented on Jackson Coyven making his pro debut this week.
Right.
These guys have played a lot, around him in tournaments with him, and he just. There's a difference about that kid when he goes and shows up and kind of attracts a lot of attention, and rightfully so. He's earned the right to be the world's best amateur for a couple of years, and has backed it up. And so, but we see that in a lot of our guys is through the recruiting process of vetting guys that we just have kind of that intuition of some similar traits and characteristics that we feel like will push them into success.
And I'll ask you one more question, then I'll close with, a question or two for Vaughn. What excites you most about his future? He just finished his sophomore year at the U.S. Open. I'll talk a little bit about the USAM that's coming up next month. What excites you about him?
So I think his experience at the U.S. Open is really going to, kind of open some floodgates and some tremendous opportunities for him, because he's, self-belief and the belief in yourself is something that is always there in guys, but until you start to really validate it, there's always usually kind of a lag in kind of performance results and whatnot. And I'll use Neil Shipley as a big example. Neil Shipley, when he arrived at Ohio State, was ranked like 1,400 in the world, and he was a above average college player at James Madison, had consistent results, but was not a, well known or well thought of, college golfer. But he'd proven himself that he was a legitimate college golfer, but certainly not all American, type of results. And then, but Neil had an incredible belief in himself, and he knew he was going to get there. It's just a matter of when he was actually going to do it. And so when Neil's play when Neil's play kind of closed the gap and he kind of started getting 1% better, right, week in, week out, month in, month out, and once that gap started to close a little bit, his self-belief was what really pushed him through to be able to sustain those high performances. And the USAM run was not a fluke for him. He had a summer leading up to that, and then he catapulted that on into his senior year of college, and is gone on to earn his tour card the kind of the hard way. He did not take the path that you're seeing most college guys do. Nowadays with PGA Tour U and other opportunities that they have, Neil kind of did the old-fashioned way, and just through his play. And he is certainly a unique guy that I think not only Vaughn, but a lot of guys can learn from and simulate that path of when they believe in themselves and kind of start to validate it through their work and through their performances. That's when the magic can really happen. And that's what, I think I see, happening with him. Is it wouldn't surprise me whatsoever to, most of these guys would acknowledge they can be their own worst enemy, but if he stays out of his own way and just continues to believe in himself and just go play golf. We talk about it all the time. Like, we want him to kind of take that 12, 13-year-old mentality of just going out and, kind of picking the pocket of the other middle schoolers and just having fun, just being a kid trying to win a Coke out at the putting green. Yeah, right. Like, that's the kid mentality we want to see them play with, and that, that playfulness that they can just go and take where they don't have the weight of expectation, anxiety, things that can really weigh you down if you let them.
That's great. Vaughn, just a couple closing questions for you. First of all, how are you going about preparing for the U.S. Amateur? I mean, at one of the best courses in the country, Marion, so storied with its history, and this time you've got time to prepare because you're playing. Unlike the U.S. Open, in 4 days you're in the Hamptons playing golf. They're not allowing you to use your push cart, and you're getting escorted by police. You're having time to prepare for the USAM. What are you doing to prepare?
I mean, to be honest, nothing different than I would for any other tournament.
Just a lot of podcasts?
I guess so. Yeah, podcast interviews. But no, I mean, just the same thing I always do. Just, I like to find feels before tournament, especially tournament rounds. Right. But leading up to them, I like to spend a lot of time playing. I don't like to practice that much, to be honest. Like, I don't like going to the range and hitting balls, because for me, it just makes me think too much on the course. And I try to be so perfect when I have sticks out or whatnot, drills set up. So when I'm hitting it well and when I feel good, I like to play as much as I can and just figure out how to get the ball in the hole the best way possible. So just do a lot of that, play 9 and not wear myself out too much.
Is there something you do to get the feels? I mean, I know what you mean, where you feel like you're in a groove and you're just feeling the swing. Is there something you do? Does it just come to you?
I think it just comes, to be honest. Yeah, I never look at videos of my swing or anything. I just kind of keep feeling stuff out until it works. And then when it does work, I can normally keep it going pretty easily. So
that's great.
Yeah, I'd say it's a lot of feel for me. And like I said, it kind of it comes after a while. If it's not there, I'll find it.
Yeah, good. And a question is sort of a final question to relate to, what we do and some of our listeners do. We hire, young analysts coming out of college, and they're trying to find their way and how can they be the best analyst possible. And we work with senior living facilities where there might be a young RN who's, learning his or her way, or maybe a young administrator. You're a young guy, but you're right now operating in an environment that's pretty elevated, especially for your age. What is any advice you might give to a young analyst starting out in the financing industry, or a nurse starting out at a nursing home that's trying to find their way?
I'll just say, lean back on what you've always done. I mean, you're there for a reason, and there's no reason you should go after it in a fearful type of mindset. Just do what you've always done and lean back on your preparation.
Love it. Yeah, that avoiding that fearful mindset and being confident based on your preparation is fantastic. And I mentioned, Chop Wood, Carry Water, a book that all of our new folks read. And it's really about embracing where you are and embracing the grind and not looking too far forward until you can master your craft. And the reality is once you master your craft, other people notice and other people want to kind of take you to another level in the organization. And so you've clearly been doing that, not only at Ohio State before, at St. Francis de Sales, and we're rooting for you in the USAM. And we were really proud for you to wear the Vium logo at the US Open. And we loved how when you almost drained the hole-in-one, you like turned back perfect. And the camera just went right on that Vium logo and the Titleist hat, and it was perfect.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you for everything you've done.
So final question I ask everybody, a favorite book or podcast that you might have. And I know Coach Mosley watches every Versed podcast. And he always emails me afterwards. He's like, man, that was inspiring, but it can't be the Versed podcast. What might be a book or a podcast?
I don't watch podcasts, so I can't give you a podcast, but we have kind of gotten into reading. Well, I have gotten into reading a little bit with the team, and with his name's Chet Scott. He's the founder, right? Founder of BTL, Built to Lead.
Yeah, right.
And he's recommended some books to us. But I actually found one on my own that I was reading, and I can't remember the name of it. It's a David Goggins book. So it's more along the lines of like mindset and how that can get you through tough times. So I'd say that, and I've tried to take some of that and apply it to how I go about golf.
That's great.
Yeah.
Coach, podcast or book that you might recommend to listeners?
Yeah, for the especially to speak on the mindset side of things, there's a book we read called Mindset. I think that's Carol Dweck. It's a great book. It talks about the fixed versus growth mindset, and it was really a good, powerful, insightful read. For podcasts, I'm a big fan of Brett McCabe's. He's a sports psychologist down in Birmingham, Alabama, works with Alabama Athletics. He played baseball at LSU, works with several guys on the PGA Tour, and he's got a great podcast out there. And then we read Fearless Golf as a book. Gio Valiente. It's a great read that you can kind of eat up. It's really good stuff for the, regardless of what level of golf you're at, it can have some really good nuggets and in there. But yeah, we've benefited greatly from Chet Scott and his work with Built to Lead, and he's been a great mentor to me, and our guys really soak up the insightful work that we put in through that BTL program that several of the teams at Ohio State take advantage of. It's been great.
Yeah, that's great. Your focus on mindset, not only just the physical stuff, but the mindset of any sport. I mean, golf's got to be at the top of the list, how important that is. But I'm so very appreciative of both of you taking this time to be participants on the Versed podcast, and we'll be rooting for you at Marion, and appreciate you sporting the Vium Capital logo.
Yeah,
so
of course. Thank you.
This is Steve Kennedy signing off for this latest edition of Versed, powered by Vium. Thanks so much. Thanks for tuning into Versed, powered by Vium Capital. The conversation doesn't stop here. Let us know what topics you want to hear, and let's make an impact in healthcare and seniors housing together. Until next time, I'm your host, Steve Kennedy, and this is Versed.